VI Attorney General Denise George announced at a press conference on Tuesday the result of the Department of Justice medical examiner's investigation into the cause of death of 22-month-old Tamir Lake, who died on May 5th, 2020.
The manner of death has been determined as homicide.
Tamir Lake was in the protective custody of the Department of Human Services at the Queen Louise Home for Children from March of 2019 to the time of his death.
On May 5th, 2020, the Medical Examiner's Office of the Department of Justice received a dispatch regarding a death at the Queen Louise Home.
At the press conference, DOJ's medical examiner, Dr. Jacqueline Pender, provided a summary of her cause and manner of death investigation. The conclusion of the investigation and preparation of the autopsy report was completed and finalized early Tuesday morning.
The cause of death is determined to be a seizure due to severe encephalopathy, due to non-accidental blunt force head injuries that occurred in December 2018, including multiple skull fractures, global hypoxic ischemia, which means global meaning the entire brain, hypoxic meaning receiving no oxygen, ischemia meaning receiving no blood, and subsequent death of parts of the brain. He also experienced a subdural hemorrhage, which is blood surrounding the brain, between the skull and the brain, subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is hemorrhage underneath the lining of the brain, and intraparenchymal hemorrhages, which means bleeding in the actual brain tissue. Other significant conditions that are included on the death certificate is a history of multiple non-accidental fractures of the bilateral upper and lower extremities that were in different stages of healing as of December 2018. This means that the decedent had fractures to his right upper extremity, left upper extremity, right lower extremity, and left lower extremity, all of which were in different stages of healing.
In her summary, Dr. Pender indicates Tamir Lake is born on July 2, 2018, premature but with good APGAR scores or health scores taken 1 and 5 minutes after birth. Tamir was discharged home in a healthy condition on August 6, 2018. During a 4-month wellness check, Tamir was found to have gastric reflux, but passed 6 of his 4-month-old milestones, but failed 3. Not able to bear weight, hold himself up, and unable to reach. In December, Dr. Pender says Tamir was brought to the ER at 1F Louis with a 5 to 6 day history of fever, vomiting, cough, runny nose. According to his chest x-ray, his lungs were clear. A CT scan was performed and it revealed a brain hemorrhage, and he showed spasms of his upper extremities. A decision was made to airlift Tamir to Miami due to the need of more advanced pediatric care. According to her investigation, once there, another CT brain scan was performed and revealed multiple skull fractures, intracranial bleeding, brain swelling, diffuse axonal injury, which is the result of traumatic shearing forces that occur when the head is rapidly accelerated or decelerated, usually as a result of violent shaking of the head or blunt force impact of the head. She said an MRI brain scan revealed his entire brain was deprived of oxygen and blood, resulting in cell death. She also added an EEG revealed permanent brain damage. And she said a skeletal survey revealed multiple bone fractures of right and left upper and lower extremities, all in different healing stages. Tamir was diagnosed with blindness caused by damage to the brain. He was then intubated and admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit. In Dr. Pender's summary, it indicates a genetic test result was negative for osteogenesis imperfecta. People with this condition have bones that break, fracture easily, often from mild trauma or with no apparent cause. On January 2nd, Tamir was discharged out of the hospital to stay with foster parents in Florida while still receiving outpatient care. Dr. Pender said in March, Tamir was determined healthy enough to fly back to St. Croix, By this time, he had been diagnosed with cerebral palsy caused by traumatic damage to the brain that results in movement disorders, intellectual disabilities, seizures, muscle contractures, and functional gastrointestinal abnormalities. DHS then took protective custody of Tamir Lake. Tamir was on medication for gastric reflux, muscle spasms, and seizures due to cerebral palsy diagnosis, said Dr. Pender. She also stated on May 5, 2020, as per Tamir's pediatrician, Dr. Ricketts, Tamir had an uneventful morning. He was reported as happy and giggling with other children and was put down for a morning nap. Approximately 20 to 30 minutes later, staff checked on Tamir, and he was found dead in bed, laying on his back.
Once the Department of Justice took custody of the body, I had immediately a full CT scan done of the body, which only showed the healed fractures from 2018 and that he had no new injuries. On May 7th, I performed an autopsy. The external examination showed that Tamir was a well-cared-for child, well-dressed, with a clean diaper. The other most important aspects of the external examination were that his pupils were widely dilated and his fingernail beds were blue. This is called cyanosis of the fingernail beds. This means that he was not breathing for a period of time. The external examination also showed that there was no abnormal fluid in his mouth, no vomit in his mouth, no abnormal secretions in his mouth. The finding of dilated pupils and cyanotic blue fingernail beds is consistent with a fatal seizure. The internal examination of the autopsy showed extensive evidence of prior head trauma, and all internal organs were without any significant abnormality. There was no sign of infection or any sort of other disease process going on. Therefore, based on the collected investigative data to date, a review of all the medical records from Miami and St. Croix, and the autopsy, and the neuropathology findings, the decedent Tamir most likely experienced a fatal seizure on the morning of May 5th, 2020. Therefore, the cause of death is a seizure due to his severe encephalopathy due to his non-accidental blunt force head trauma in 2018. The manner of death is homicide.
AG George indicated that the matter will be referred promptly to the Virgin Islands Police Department for child abuse and homicide investigation.
Keep in mind, and I always want to caution everyone that it is very important not to rush to judgment or jump to conclusions with respect to who the perpetrator or who the perpetrators are. This is an active investigation, and the manner of the investigation is to follow the evidence, and the evidence is what would lead to a final arrest. What happens is that once an investigation is done and the perpetrators are identified and arrested and charged, the Department of Justice will prosecute this to the fullest extent of the law and bring justice for the death of Tamir Lake.
This is Sandra Gumansing, VI, Department of Justice.